Your property portfolio is facing its biggest threat in a decade, and it's coming directly from the government. Today, we're talking to a man who teaches thousands of property professionals how to protect and grow their portfolios. Meet Kevin McDonald, a seasoned investor who is dissecting the government's next potential moves on property tax. In this video, we're breaking down the proposed seismic shifts in stamp duty and what they mean for you and your next purchase, the potential overhaul of capital gains tax on residential property, and the rumoured new annual tax for property owners that could impact your cash flow. You'll definitely want to stick around to the end because Kevin reveals the hidden opportunity and the surprising upside for savvy investors in all these changes. Let's dive right in. So, Kevin, in the last few weeks, the BBC News released an article which talked about potential changes to how they're going to tax property. The first one that they mentioned in their article is national insurance tax for landlords. So currently rental income is exempt from national insurance. They are suggesting that landlords should pay national insurance 20% on all property income and an extra 8% on earnings above £50,270. And it wouldn't apply to company-owned properties. So what's your take on this?
Right, so I think it's ridiculous. The challenge here is when you bring in a tax that affects everybody, rents could go up. And this is why they've done this, because if they said national insurance for all buy-to-lets, then rents would go up and everybody would have the problem solved. When they say limited company-owned buy-to-lets are not affected, but personally owned buy-to-lets are affected and need to pay national insurance, well then, let's say you own a personal buy-to-let, number 12 High Street, and I own number 13 High Street, but it's a limited company buy-to-let. Well, you cannot put your rents up, and this is why they've done it. You can't put your rents up just because you've got an extra 10% national insurance bill. Because if your rents are not dictated by you, they're dictated by the market. And my rent, I don't need to put it up because I don't have that 10% cost. So I'll keep my rent where it is, which means you now have to take the pain of that extra 10%. Just like the private landlords already got the Section 24 tax where they can't offset their mortgage interest relief. They're earning money in a job, most of these people. They're the small landlord that has got one buy-to-let to subsidise their pension they know is going to let them down. So what they've done is they've deferred holidays, they've sacrificed nights out, etc., to save up a bit of money to buy a buy-to-let as a retirement plan. And the government want these people out of the market and be replaced by the BlackRocks and the Blackstones and the big corporations.
Who are buying huge numbers of property right now, right?
Buying up, and this is happening right in front of people's eyes and they're missing it, is the big corporations are buying up thousands and thousands of properties. They're the ones buying the first-time buyer homes. So the little guy owns nothing. And they'll bash, and the media does this, to bash on landlords because they want to send out this message of bash on the landlord to make the landlord look bad so that people will back them. It's like the sugar tax. Boris Johnson years ago introduced the sugar tax, and they put a theme around it. We want to save the children.
Oh, save the children. Of course they want to save the children.
So sugar tax to save the children, school meals, free school meals, etc. All of that income, if you look into it, and you can go on the websites of the government websites and check this stuff out, the money that was created from the sugar tax was never passed on to saving any children. Then they introduced the inheritance tax on farmers. Keir Starmer and Rachel Thieves just did. Inheritance tax on farmers. And what did they say? We're not just going to tax the farmer, we're going to save the NHS. Well, we're already a year in and I don't see the NHS been saved yet. I know people say, oh, it's only been a year, give them a chance. Well, things are getting worse all the time. But the point here isn't about whether it be Labour or Tories or anybody else because they're all as bad as each other. The point here is that they create these themes to get the general public to go, yeah, save the children. Yeah, save the NHS. And this one is, yeah, another tax. But how do we sell it? Well, we're not having to save anyone here. Let's bash the landlord because it's either save or bash. Mm-hmm. And then the big corporations sneak in under the radar and pick all up this stock. They're not charging the big corporation the money. Now, since 2016, smart property investors have been buying properties in limited companies anyway. I've got 12 in my personal name from pre-2016. Everything since then is all in limited companies. So those ones are all okay. But these ones that are in my personal name, I'll have that extra cost on. Now, you can incorporate into a limited company. There's things you can do when you know what you're doing. When you're properly educated and you know what you're doing, there's things. We're running a multiple streams of property income soon, and it's specifically around things like these things that are happening. So people can come and learn about how to protect themselves when this stuff happens.
These stamp duty changes are reshaping the property market, whether you're a landlord, buyer, or a seller. So if you want to understand what the new rules mean for you and how to turn them into an advantage, come to our free multiple streams of property income event, and the team at Progressive can help you to achieve your goals and protect your hard-earned cash. Spaces are very limited, so click the link below to grab your seat now to secure yours before they're gone.
So I think it's outrageous that they're charging national insurance, and they'll sell it as, oh, we're trying to fill the tax gap and we don't want to tax the working people. That's interesting because I employ people. So I've got a lettings business. I've got that run all my portfolio and manage property for other people. And let's say I'm hiring a staff member and I've got a 30 grand budget to hire that staff member. Well, that 30 grand, I'm going to look at it and go, okay, I've got 30 grand budget to hire somebody. I'm going to, out of that 30 grand, I've got to pay employers. They said we're not taxing the working people, we put up employers' national insurance. Well, I've got to take out of my 30 grand pension contributions, my employer's national insurance, which is now 15%. All of that cost comes out, and then what's left is the salary I offered the employee.
So the employee is getting a lower salary as a result of these changes?
Because I only had 30 grand to allocate towards that employee. That 30 grand is allocated towards the employee's salary, plus my employer's national insurance, plus my pension contributions for that employee. For the employer, the cost of the employee is holistic. It's everything. Mm-hmm. The employee sees their salary as X, and the employee then thinks that the employer's national insurance got taxed. No, you just got a 1,200 quid a month less pay because of the extra cost. And then those already in jobs will go, well, that's okay for me. I'm already in a job. I'm not looking for a job. Yeah, well, you didn't get your pay rise.
Exactly. Or you didn't get a bonus. It didn't happen because
you didn't get that. Or
business can no longer afford to
Or
pay
you
it.
got made redundant because they had to let somebody go. Because that 30 grand now, because of all this other cost, I've got to let a staff member go to take into account of it.
I think it's a stealth tax on working people.
And the national insurance tax now on landlords is taxing the person who has tried to provide for their pension for the future. That's their pension plan. Yeah, and you could say, oh, well, you shouldn't be making money off somebody else in their pension plan. Well, but the government aren't giving them a pension to allow them to be survived. So what they've done is they've took it upon themselves to have a survival mechanism, and the government wants you to own nothing and be happy.
Own nothing, be happy.
It's outrageous.
Outrageous. And you know what's also really interesting? I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were talking about the potential national insurance increase on landlords, because it is potential. It hasn't happened yet. We'll see what happens.
Well, you know what they do? You know what they do with this stuff, first of all? They put it out there in the media. The media, they literally let out some bits of information to see what the reaction is. And then they go, good reaction, bad reaction, we'll run with that one.
Yeah.
Test.
And that's really interesting because
see what the sheep said.
And here's what the sheep think. A lot of them think that national insurance is still tied to the NHS. So a lot of people think that when they pay their national insurance, they're funding the NHS.
No, they're not.
It's just another tax.
It's
decoupled now. So you're paying income tax, and your national insurance is more tax.
Yeah.
And so when people hear about this landlord and national insurance tax increasing, they think, well, that will help the NHS. No, it won't.
No, it won't.
It will go into a black hole of HS2 and all the other failed projects that the government's trying to do, and the government bureaucracy, it'll get lost, and it won't help anybody.
Rachel Teeves, and that's her surname, increased taxes in the budget last autumn, to fill a £20 billion black hole. Money is currency. Current is meant to flow, currency. She put a dam up to stop the flow of money, right? Money's not flowing. When money flows, taxes come in. Every time money transfers between hands, there's taxes coming in. So she stopped everything with higher taxes, higher national insurance, employers' national insurance, higher stamp duties, just higher taxes across the board. And now, 12 months later, coming up to the next budget, she's raised taxes to fill a £20 billion black hole. And now, whoa, we've got a $50 billion black hole. Why? Because less taxes have come in. And you raise more taxes, less will come in. We've got INEOS announcing, right, literally, they're pulling £3 billion pounds worth of investment out of the UK. £3 billion. And they're moving it to America because they said there's no point using that money in the UK. This is one of the UK's richest men, Jim Ratcliffe. Yeah? The UK's richest people live abroad. America's richest people live in America. That should tell you something. And people say, well, let them all go. But you think, oh, let them all go, they still have to pay their taxes here. No, they don't, because they can have company structures elsewhere. They're bringing the jobs. There's companies shutting down. INEOS, because of this 3 billion quid, the amount of employment, it's not just their 3 billion investment, the amount of employment that's going to not happen, the amount of people who are not going to be able to get jobs, the amount of people who are going to lose jobs.
And this is not a tax on working people.
It's ridiculous.
It's the biggest tax on working people.
It's ridiculous.
It's totally insane. And this one might be equally ridiculous. So the next thing that they say here is they're potentially thinking about putting capital gains tax on main homes. So CGT is paid on profits from selling assets like second homes. Main residents are currently exempt.
Principal primary residence.
And the proposal is to remove the exemption for high value homes. So at rates of 18% for basic rate taxpayers and 24% of higher rate taxpayers.
Yeah. What value homes?
They haven't actually specified what value homes here.
Yeah. What was the wording they used?
They have said main residents are exempt, and the proposal is to remove the exemption for high value homes.
High value homes. So what is a high value home? Because they could say, well, a high value home. I'll give you an example. It's like the Help to Buy scheme. So you pay money in for years into a Help to Buy scheme, but the criteria is you have to buy a property under 400 grand. Now, where do you get a property under 400 grand in London? Is a high value 400 grand then? So they're going to say, well, it has to be a low value home under 400. So if 400 grand is a high value home, then basically they'll because who determines what high value is? It could be 600 grand, it could be $1 million. What's high value? So they'll drag most people into the fact that they have to pay capital gains tax on selling their principal primary residence, their family home, which is outrageous as well. It's another tax. It's just another tax. Now, if there is a big tax, if they bring in capital gains tax on all family homes, what's going to happen to the value of properties? It's going to go up. Because I'm going to want, if it's brought in for every home, then every home, if there's 24% tax on the home, well then house prices, I would predict, would go up by 24% minimum. It'll be slightly different because obviously 24% tax on whatever the rise is. Property prices are going to go up. It's going to shove house prices up. They don't mind that, by the way. They want the house price to go up because if it pushes house prices up, it's more tax. It's a bigger 24%. So they actually want higher prices to bring in more taxes. The government don't want lower house prices. They want higher house prices. But capital gains tax on a family home is ridiculous. It's just, it's a family home, and they should be focused on trying to generate more work, incentivize companies to hire people, incentivize regeneration, etc., not taxing people's family homes. It's outrageous.
Outrageous.
It's going to force people to not move, by the way. Here's what's going to happen. People in big value homes, you're starting off with your little home, and then you want to move up the property ladder as you go. I moved home last year, and I moved from an okay home to a large home. If that comes in 24% on capital gains tax on a family home, I'll probably never move home again until the day I die. The reason for that is, why would I sell my home and pay 24% capital gains tax on it when I've done it up, I'm doing work to it, etc. I'm adding value to it. I'm spending money. To do up the home, by the way, I'm spending money.
Which is increasing the value of the home.
But I'm spending money I'm paying builders who are taxed. I'm buying a material that's taxed. I'm paying VAT on the material. So there's already a load of tax been paid on increasing the value, and then they want to tax you again on the increased value. It's just...
It's theft.
But when money moves, by the way, and this is the thing about currency, if they actually just created jobs and movement of money and reduced taxes, money would move more, you'd create more tax. And it's very simple. The more often a pound moves, if I give you... If I have a wallet on me, just as an example, right? If I give you, right, 100 quid, okay?
And I do accept cash still.
Yeah, if I give you 100 quid, you now, right, you now have to, I'll need that back in a second, right? Yeah. But if you now have that 100 quid, if you're 20% taxpayer, or let's say a 40% taxpayer, just basic 20% taxpayer, that went to the government. You get 80. Right? For the profit, whatever the profit is. Now, you then go and you buy a service of somebody else where you're 80. And there's 20% tax, which isn't exactly 20, but there's only about 62-ish left. That person moves the money again. There's tax. That person moves the money again. There's tax. And all money eventually goes to the government anyway. Because the more it moves, that 20 quid was probably in the hands of 10 different people. Maybe 20, maybe 50. Old money has been in the hands of hundreds and hundreds of people. Which means that money, they have collected, on that 100 quid, the government have collected way more than £100 in tax. Because this is not real. This is just a promissory note. It even writes it on the note under the Bank of England, check your note at home. We promise to pay the bearer the sum of 20 quid. It's just a promissory note. That money has generated more than 100 quid in tax. That money doesn't generate 20 quid in tax or 40 quid in tax or 45 quid in tax, 20, 40 or 45%. That generates thousands in tax because the more it moves, the more tax comes in. By the way, give me your opinion in the comments. I'd love your opinion. I'll watch this back. Give me your opinion in the comments. Agree or disagree? Do you understand what I'm saying about the fact that the more it moves, the more tax is actually generated, which means the more employment, the more jobs, the lower the tax system, the more money is actually made in a country. Ireland has become one of the richest countries in Europe. Yeah, like literally the potato famine. I can say that, I'm Irish. We've become one of the richest countries in Europe because we've got 12.5% corporation tax. Facebook is there, Google is there, all of the big,
which is much less corporation tax.
All
than,
of the big tech companies are there. They're all over there. All the pharmaceutical companies, because the tax system is advantageous, which means Ireland's become a very wealthy country. Why? Because of employment. Yeah. There used to be no jobs in Ireland. When I was younger, we had to leave the country. Now there's jobs everywhere because low tax system. But we've got a government who've never run a business. The thing about love them or hate them, the Labour Party, the irony of Labour is don't work in Labour's thoughts, right?
Yeah.
But we've got so many people now, and Tories were no better, by the way. They screwed it up too. But all they're worried about is attacking each other instead of solving the problem. But when you put a bunch of people into power who've never ran a business, how are they supposed to run the biggest business of all the country? They can't. They've never run a business. They don't know how. So they think that to generate income, they have to increase taxes. Well, I mean, Angela Rayner, right? How could Angela Rayner... The worry was they said that she's ruined her chance of becoming Prime Minister. Imagine if she became a Prime Minister. No offence, but she was a school dropout, right? And I didn't do great in school myself and I was a school dropout to a point, but at least I went away and I worked jobs and then I ran a business. But imagine her running the country when she's never run a business. It's outrageous. And you can hate upon me for this or agree with me, let me know in the comments. She never ran a business.
Yeah.
Has she even worked in a business?
And what's really interesting about what she did as well, now I know we're going off piste a little bit, but I don't actually blame her for avoiding stamp duty.
No.
And the reason I don't blame her is because for me personally, and I think for a lot of people out there, I wouldn't mind paying tax if it was being used efficiently and well. But what does it say when a minister refuses to pay tax because she knows it's going to be wasted? She would rather keep it than pay tax because she knows that it will be wasted anyway.
The reason she had to go, was because she's been greater than good for years going, it's one rule for them and another rule for us. And she's calling us the general public. One rule for them, the private school educated, the whatever, and another rule for us. Yeah. And then she all the time was a hypocrite doing to them.
Total hypocrite.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing about it. It's the hypocrisy.
Yeah, that's why she had to go.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the point is...
Yeah. So the next two are kind of linked together, but we'll deal with them separately. And those are abolishing stamp duty and the national property tax, which is the alternative to stamp duty. So first of all, with abolishing stamp duty. So stamp duty is paid on home purchases, and you have to pay more if it's an investment property. And exemptions exist for properties under £125,000 at the moment, and for first-time buyers up to £300,000. And they're looking at abolishing stamp duty altogether. And they're going to bring in a national property tax. But in terms of the abolishing the stamp duty, good, bad?
Yeah, abolishing stamp duty is a great idea because people say they increase stamp duty. And there's more houses for sale on Rightmove and Zoopla than any time in history. Nothing's selling. Yeah? But house prices are rising. A little bit. They're staying in many areas, but they're still slightly rising in a lot of areas. They might have dropped in some areas, but they're rising mainly. Why? Here's why. Because everything's sitting stuck again. It's where they've put the dam in the river, and all the water is building up against the dam. Yeah? So those that are buying, they'll buy anyway. And the additional stamp duty hasn't affected them because they'll just work it into their numbers. I'm still buying properties for investment and everything, and our offers are just set to meet the number. So it doesn't really matter if the stamp duty is higher. However, people think rising stamp duty would have crashed the property market, give first-time buyers more chance to buy. That hasn't happened. None of that's happened. Lower interest rates might give them a better chance to buy, but rising stamp duty hasn't. I actually think that if they remove stamp duty completely, there wouldn't be a property market rise, there would be a drop. Because there's so much stock available for sale that's just sitting there that nobody can buy. If people could actually start to buy them, now they'd go shopping, but what they do is there's so much stock available to buy, they'd start making offers. People aren't even offering. That's the problem. Yeah, they're not even offering. And it was in the paper recently, I can't remember his name now, but they...
Oh, it was the radio broadcaster?
No, not, yeah, what was his name? The guy that, the English guy down there.
Oh, I don't
Windsor Castle.
Yeah.
He passed away. The kids are selling the house. It's been on the market since November last year. They've not even had a single viewing. Not even a single viewing.
And you would expect people even just to view the property, given
just take a look.
The status of the guy, right?
Just to take a look. They're not even a single viewing. If they got rid of stamp duty, people would be able to go offer. People go offer, and there's so much stock available for sale, offers would drop, and because people can offer what they want to offer. The price is dictated by the offer, not the asking price. But people can't even offer. They can't even view because they can't get into the market because of where it is. Prices aren't dropping because the dam has meant it's all this built up pressure. And this built up pressure is the problem.
And perhaps abolishing stamp duty could help relieve that pressure.
Yeah.
But here's the flip side. In lieu of stamp duty, they're talking about bringing in a national property tax. And what they said is they might do an annual levy instead of upfront stamp duty. It would apply to homes worth over 500,000 and then increase on higher value homes as well. Any homes under 500,000 are exempt.
Yeah.
So a yearly levy on property. What do you think?
Well, people with really expensive homes, all that'll happen is the top of the market, the prices will crash. Okay? The people at the top of the market who've got money will probably want to sell their expensive homes but can't because they're valuable, but they'll try. They might just leave the country,
Yes.
as many are. Nobody's going to want to buy the expensive properties. Let me predict this right now, right? And you see this play out. Nobody will want to buy the expensive properties, which means everybody that would have wanted to move up to an expensive won't, because they don't want to go over that 500 grand number or whatever the number is, yeah? 500 grand they've said?
500 grand is what they've said, yeah.
So anyone in a 495 grand property that would have gone to an 800 grand property now won't move, which means that 495 grand property doesn't become available for the next level, which means everybody at the lower level won't want to sell, and it's just going to be another stall in the whole market. Now, let's say the lower level do move up. Well, what's going to happen is because they've stalled the market and nobody wants to buy anything over 500k because they don't want to buy that expensive house. I'll come back to if that was coming in, I wouldn't have moved home last year. I'd have stayed in the property I was in.
Stagnation again.
Yeah,
So it's just stagnation.
It'll force people to stay. But then what'll happen is because everybody's staying and now you got 80-90% of the population all down here fighting for the cheaper ones but nobody moving up, those prices are going to rise massively. So the top's going to drop in price, but the bottom's going to rise massively. And it's going to mean you'll never be able to get a home again because the cheap properties will double in price. The cheapest properties on the market will double in price.
And then do you know what's going to happen, I think? I think they're going to stick the threshold at 500,000. So there are a lot of people who are thinking, well, that doesn't affect me, I'm okay. It will affect them for the reasons you said. But then when their properties do go up in value, they're going to go over the threshold.
They're going over the threshold. Yeah.
And then eventually everybody's going to sleepwalk into everybody paying tax, even with a stagnant market.
But it's the same thing when you have when you have your tax bracket and then you get a pay rise and a pay rise and a pay rise, but your tax bracket stayed the same. And then suddenly you're in a higher tax bracket. Yeah, you sleepwalk into it.
And this is the thing about them freezing the tax thresholds. I think a lot of people don't see the massive impact that has.
They're playing the long-term game.
Long-term game, because so many more people are being brought into those higher tax brackets because they've frozen the thresholds. And I think the same thing's going to happen here.
Yeah. The cheapest houses will double in value, and you'll see everything under the 500 grand mark almost leveling up, and people will not be able to get on the first step. Because you have to get on the first step, people have to move up the steps. But nobody's moving up the steps.
I mean, it's very clear to me that a lot of this stuff is going to be not beneficial really at all to the property market. I believe, and I've heard lots of people say, including yourself, that in every problem there's an opportunity, right? For every downside there's an upside. So what are the angles here? What could be positive out of this situation?
There's always positive, because the thing about every government, when they introduce a law, the sayings, observe the masses, do the opposite. When everybody around you is greedy, be fearful. When everybody is fearful, be greedy. We've all heard these sayings, yet people don't pay attention to them. And then they go, well, I'm listening, I'm waiting for the media to tell me when to do a move. And that's why you lose, and you continuously lose. So these sayings exist for a reason, because they're true. Because wealthy people for generations pass them on. I'm going to be continuing to buy property. I'm going to be continuing to build businesses for a simple reason. There's going to be a lot of fear in the market. There'll be a lot of people panicking. There'll be a lot of people selling. And a law can come in, but it can be taken out again. Labour can come in, but they'll be taken out again. And again, just like the government are playing the long game, you play the long game in property. You not get rich quick. It's the long game. And over time, you're going to win. The big opportunity right now is I'd be stamping up as many cheap properties as you possibly can, because they are going to double, right? Minimum. So the lower end of the market right now, before this happens, get in early. Yeah? Get in early. It's like buying property before London Olympics was announced, buying property around the East London. They doubled in value at the Olympics. Get in early and get some property deals done as soon as you possibly can. We're in a window of opportunity for the next maybe 12 to 18 months where you can really grab some bargains before they start to take off. When interest rates start to come down and people are starting to feel like they've got a bit more money just because of the interest rate coming down, it's a feeling of more money. There's a market rise coming, and it's coming at the bottom end of the market, not the top end of the market. So I'd be snapping up as many of the little money boxes as I possibly could if I was you right now. Get those cheap properties snapped up.
Get them snapped up, and it's all about having the knowledge and the people around you that will teach you how to do this stuff, right? Yeah. And that's what's really key. So surround yourself with the right sorts of people and make this happen for this opportunity. It's a closing window, right, in the next 18 months, this opportunity. Yeah. So whilst this window is open, it's time to make hay, right? When the sun shines, make hay. Kevin, thanks so much for speaking to us today.
Welcome.
You've worked hard your whole life, built savings, maybe even bought property. But when it comes to stocks, you hold back. Because deep down, there's that fear. What if I lose it all? What if it's just another scam? Honestly, day trading probably isn't going to work for you. But investing is different. You're smart enough to know saving alone isn't enough to build the best future for your family. But investing in stocks can feel overwhelming. That's not your fault. School never taught us how to do this. I'm Ben Knight, and over the last decade, I've been investing successfully and consistently in the stock market. And I've taught hundreds of people my step-by-step strategy that takes less than 5 minutes a day. Now, I want to show you how to do this too. That's why I created my free online masterclass. And if you're serious about building wealth for you and your family, you need to be there. Seats fill up fast, so don't miss this. To secure your free space, go right now to www.thetradetribe.com and I'll see you there live.